Danessa Myricks is one of those brands for me that I tend to have really mixed reviews on. Some of it I really like and some of it I really hate. So I have tried the Groundworks palette from her. I tried her foundation, and I feel like my results have been so-so. However, I will say these little chrome flake pots I am obsessed with. They are wondrous. They're so good. And like, this is one of the things on my eyeballs today. So you know, I really like them. Like, I keep catching my reflection in my wayfinder, and this is beautiful. So I decided that it was probably important that I do try out her Lightworks palette. So as I'm kind of swatching this, I'm going to talk about them. So I started with this first row down here. This one in the palette, they labeled Soft Energy. And we have the shades Resilient, Radiance, Centered, Protected, and Evolving. Now, I would say, and you can kind of see it from the pan, these are probably the least shifty of the bunch. We have this one that kind of shifts to like a pinky blue, orange color right here. But for the most part, these aren't super shifty in how they look. Now, I will say this shade here in the center, called Centered, is really really flaky, much like these pots right here. They don't necessarily go on. This is more of a textured finish, I would say. These other four are really a lot smoother than this Centered one. And you could kind of see it when I swatched it, but I don't know if you can see when I like pick up. You can see it in the pan, but you can also see it if my camera would focus. You can also kind of see it on the swatch itself. So just know that that's a thing. That texture happens a few times within this palette. All right, then moving on to this middle row. I almost want to say that this middle row is the most shifty. And she has labeled this, good old Danessa labeled this Bold Energy, which I think is really an accurate description of this middle row. Because I'm going to kind of shift this in the light and see if you guys can catch the tonality. But this one right here, it's kind of this emerald green color, and it shifts to like this blue, into this green, into this emerald green. This one right here is gorgeous. It's like a silvery into like almost this purple. It's honestly really pretty. That one is like bold, but it is a little bit more subtle in terms of shift. Then this purple one. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you the names. So this one is the Abundant, this emerald green one. This one is Inspiring, and then we have Healed. Now this one is such a fun color because I'm trying to get it to catch the light nicely. But this one shifts into like a purple, but if you're looking at it at just the right angle, it turns like almost pinky green. Let me see if I can get the right angle on that for you. But this one is Healed. So right here, it's purple. Do you see that shift? All right, then we have this pink one labeled Loved. This one is like a pink into a gold into a green shimmer. Then we have Fearless. It's funny because I'm looking at these in the wayfinder and they look completely different than when I look down at them. But Fearless is this, and you can kind of see this one a lot better in camera. This one is this like peachy into a kind of silvery and then into a gold. Then we have Fierce. I think this one's probably my favorite. It's like this reddish color into like an orange into a gold. And then we have Brave. This one is blue into like this lavendery color into this kind of white color. And then we have, or sorry, that was Brave. And then we have Strong, which is this bold blue into this like kind of teal color. Now, I want to point out that Brave is kind of a different texture. It's a little bit more foiled as well as fierce. So that's these two right here. They have a similar texture to this centered one. Not quite the same texture, it's a little bit different, but it's a similar texture for sure. And then we have this last row. This one is grounding energy. So we have this green, which is enough. We have unbreakable, we have powerful, and this one is powerful is a little bit of a shifty shade. It turns from a reddish pink color into this like silvery color. We have unstoppable, and then we have invincible. Now this texture and this texture are pretty much identical. Same thing with these two rows aren't nearly as shifty, and maybe that's something that everybody knew. This is just the first Lightworks palette that I've ever had. Now I have to say, the colors on these seem to be really impressive. I can't really talk too much about the staying power, and if you guys have watched some of my other longer videos, you know that I seriously have a problem with staying power of eyeshadow, meaning it doesn't stay. So if you guys are the same way, I can't speak to that, although I will try to update you guys about that. So far, I'm really, really impressed though. These seem to work really well with a brush as well as with your fingers. They swatch really well. The shift in them is unreal. So far, so good. I've been enjoying this. I will say, this is an expensive palette. And something that I feel like I don't talk about enough, because I have a lot of makeup, and I think it's really easy to forget this, but if you don't think that you're going to use almost all of the colors or all of the colors, this is not the palette for you. Now, I know that that's a bold statement, but the reality of it is it's $125, and that is a lot of money. Granted, I love makeup, and honestly, I have been getting a little bit more into the world of duochromes and multichromes. So this is something that I really wanted to get my fingers into and play with. However, I feel like the caveat with that is you better play and play hard. Like, this better be one of those palettes that is gonna look dirty and grimy and gross at the end of this. Because as much as I am a huge advocate for higher end eyeshadow palettes, this is luxury. This is a luxury price point. And the reality of it is luxury price points aren't necessarily better than high end. They're more expensive. And one thing I will say, I don't know how true this is, but these do have those multi-chrome pigments in them, which I have heard are some of the most expensive to manufacture. So if you are super into multi-chromes, this could be actually a really cheap alternative. I was looking at some Cliona eyeshadows because everybody says they're one of the best multi-chrome eyeshadows out there that you can buy. I was looking at them, and just one square is around $19. Sometimes it's a little bit less, sometimes it's a little bit more, but one pan, that's the word I was looking for, duh, one pan is around $19. So really, this is a steal at $125. But I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of this. One thing that I really like is last year with the Lightworks 4 palette, she did some water activated pigments. I'm really glad she didn't do that this year. And I have to say, like I said before, I have not purchased a Lightwork palette before. However, I tend to use my water activated pigments for mostly my SFX looks. So I don't really want a water activated anything glittery because I don't really need it. I have a ton of body paints that I use for things like that I can just put some shimmer on top of, and it's not really necessary to have something that's specifically dedicated to that. That being said, if you want to take the time to purchase something like that, like this Lightworks palette, the Lightworks 5 palette does seem to be really beautiful, but make sure you're weighing the pros and cons of this as well, because as much as I am a makeup lover, a beauty junker I'm a beauty junker. As much as I love makeup, and I am that person, I think that it's important to exercise restraint when it comes to certain kinds of makeup. One thing for me is I actually rarely, if ever, purchase limited edition items, and I do that on purpose because honestly, if I'm using a makeup product and I find out later on that I'm not even going to be able to show it to people or tell people about it, then for me it kind of loses its oomph factor. So the Lightworks palette is one of the few that I actually branched outside of that and said, I'm going to actually purchase this. I'm going to try it out and see how it goes. I do think it's beautiful. I think it was worth the money, especially considering like one pan of the Cleona eyeshadows are $19. Even the Odin's Eye multichromes that they have are all $14 a pan. So, I mean, if you're looking at it in terms of those multichrome pigments, they do seem to run really, really expensive. And so it might still be worth it if you are obsessed with those types of eyeshadows. Okay, hear me out. I just did a couple of looks with the Danessa Myricks palette. I paired it with a few of my ColourPop palettes and then one of my Glamlight palettes. And these are the two looks that I came out with. I can confirm that the shimmery shades go on really nicely, really smoothly. The only thing is, if you get one that's more like chrome and flaky like, the heat of your finger really helps to melt that into your skin. Otherwise you end up with like flakes that are kind of sitting on top and not really blending into the other eyeshadow. So make sure you keep that in mind when using this palette. Is sometimes the heat of the finger is key, and I understand if you hate doing that because it's my least favorite mode of application, but with some eyeshadows it's kind of just necessary, and I think that this palette might be that. It might be necessary. Maybe not with some of these shades. However, it seems like these shades, because I used this one and I used this one. What is that? That's Brave and Abundant. It seems like for those two shades, the heat of your finger really helped. I hope you enjoyed this video detailing out the Danessa Myricks palette. Hopefully, this helped to answer some of your questions about the textures as well as some of the finishes. If you liked my video, go ahead and like and subscribe. I do post at least one long form video every week and then quite a lot of shorts. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!